Just gonna say this, if y'all don't mind. I am so sick of right-wing men coming into my mentions and asking me stupid basic biology questions like, what is a woman and are babies valuable? I have given birth to not one, not two, but three full humans and raised them with the help of my husband. I am a mother, but I'm not your mother. If you need answers to basic biological questions, you need to Google it or ask your mama. Again, I'm a mother, but I'm not your mother. Stay out of my mentions. Be blessed.
This is HBR News number 352. Cracker Jack comes out. Onlyfans model stabs boyfriend to death. Where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. I couldn't exactly come up with anything like clever for the OnlyFans thing except just saying what happened. I guess I could have given that a little bit more color, but you know, nothing was coming to me. I'm not exactly a master of off the cuff comedy. So anyway, hello everyone. Happy month after Women's History Month, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you are laughing at all of this craziness so that it does not drive you, in fact, crazy. My name is Brian Martinez and I am the host of this show, but I am also joined by my brilliant and just incredible co-hosts, Mike J, Dr. Random Cam, and Hannah. Mike J's not here right now, but he'll be along a little bit later. He's just running a little behind, which is fine. So yeah, be sure to hang out with us.
In theory, I am some kind of expert in off-the-cuff comedy, and even I'm running dry at the moment.
Yes, exactly. So I thought of you the other day, Mike. I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and I hadn't seen that in years, and I was like,
"Where's the rum?"
Yeah,
where is the rum?
And I was like, I never noticed how much like Jack Sparrow Mike sounds. Like it's
because Johnny Depp was trying to do Keith Richards, and any drunk Englishman's eventually sounds like Keith Richards.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, just wanted to say, I thought of you the other day because I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, so where was I? Right. So we have a great show lined up for you guys today. So please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News Show, we're going to be talking about a model whose alias is Courtney Tailor, and she murdered her boyfriend, stabbing him to death with, I assume a knife. But now that I think about it, it could have been a spoon. So, because it'll hurt more. A dad was facing charges for accusing groomers of grooming. A new contraceptive for men looks like is on the horizon. We'll look at that briefly. Cracker Jill and more. So stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. And I found this website called thenation.com. It seems like it's a woman's website, but it's sort of like a feminist website too. And they wrote an article called "Let's Start Charging Men to Have Babies. Mothers are pushed out of the workforce. Maybe it's time for a market solution." So yeah, because we've never done that before. Have you ever heard of this revolutionary idea of making men pay for, pay for their kids?
Can you even imagine?
I know. This is the intellectual robustness of our opponents. So we're gonna figure out, because there's probably I always got to leave room for the possibility that they got something smart to say, something profound, something that I had not considered, and it's not simply.
I've read that article. No,
they
don't.
Have?
Yes.
Maybe we should start encouraging men to be strong so that they're attractive. That's the right-wing equivalent of that, by the way. Let's start encouraging men to be strong so that women will be attracted to them. Brilliant. Brilliant, my dude. We've never thought of that before. Evolution hasn't thought of that in the last million years.
We're going to read Self-Awareness Level 0, the article.
Yeah, it's nuts. So if you want to, again, I haven't read it. I don't know what's in it, but I'm sure I can guess. So if you want to be a part of that and you want to see our reactions or even react yourself to the article, then please consider becoming a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month is the minimum to get into the Discord. We're talking about the cost of an expensive cup of coffee or a regular cup of coffee, considering what our dollar is worth now. But once a month, and you get a lot of content, and you also get access to the community and all the activities. They have movie nights, they do workshops, they share memes. There's all kinds of stuff. There's lots of puppers and snacks and Kates and turtles is I don't know what the cutesy word for turtle is, but I just pulled that out of my ass. And all kinds of other stuff going on. So please consider joining us at feedthebadger.com and then come on into the Discord and hang out with the community. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the known internet, then please go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. And if you're not watching us on Rumble, but you're on YouTube because, old habits die hard, I get it, but maybe consider going over to Rumble, follow us there. If we ever get removed or suspended or permanently banned from YouTube, we will always upload to Rumble, and we generally don't change the schedule. It's generally reliable. Tuesday, new show, 6 p.m. Eastern. I try to be as consistent as I can. So thank you for all of that. So a couple of brief announcements I got to make before we get into the stories I actually picked because of some things that have popped up. So you guys probably heard that Gilbert Gottfried passed away. He was, according to reports, struggling with multiple sclerosis. Sorry. And, it finally caught up with him. And if you guys don't know who Gilbert Gottfried is, I don't know what to tell you. Aladdin, at least, right? Aladdin. So he was the parrot. He was a very funny guy, and we're gonna miss him, and it's a shame. So does anyone have any thoughts on Gilbert Gottfried here?
I can just imagine him up in Islamic heaven right now, trying to appeal to Allah, say, "I've spent the best part of my life shitting on the Christian left for being a bunch of assholes. I even played the part of an Islamic parrot, doing everything he can to shit on everyone." I can't do it. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I had to step back from the microphone. You have to step back from the microphone.
Yes,
doing a Gilbert Gottfried.
There was one time he did an interview. I want to say it was on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and he talked in his everyday voice and just shocked the shit out of Jay Leno because his everyday voice was just this perfectly normal, kind of smooth, dude voice. And he didn't sound annoying or anything. And he's like, "What, did you think I talked like that all the time?" And it was actually funnier than if he had been talking in his acting voice, his stage voice, because it was just the look on Jay Leno's face was great, and the contrast was great.
You know who else? And
then you had to imagine somebody going through life talking like that all of the time. It would be. But
you know who else did that? Actually, I think this was fairly common. But somebody else who did that came to mind was Fran Drescher. So Fran Drescher, who played the nanny, and I remember she did a normal voice on the show. So she did her normal voice on the show because, she has that really nasally character voice. And then she went to this sushi restaurant and she tried wasabi for the first time. And she just ate like a whole big clump of it because she didn't know what it was. and it cleared her throat. And so she talked normal. She was like, "Oh, that's really something," like her voice complete. It was quite funny because she was like making fun of herself. But I get, Gilbert Gottfried was like one of these people from the time period where comedians weren't just telling jokes, but they were also like playing a character. So like it was like the character of what Larry the Cable Guy, or the character of Gilbert Gottfried, or the character of Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright, the really dry play on words guy, right? But I mean,
the guy that wants a full body tattoo of himself but taller. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. Oh my gosh. And everybody should look up Rachel Deer, the song Rachel Deer, because it's great. Yeah. But honestly, I've always wondered what it would be like to hear a conversation in character between Gilbert Gottfried and Sam Kinison. Of course, now they can have it.
And maybe Bobcat Goldthwait.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we'll have to wait on that
who's
one.
Never heard
Bobcat Goldthwait
talking normal. It's a completely different voice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to his funeral. I hope people at Gilbert Gottfried's funeral read out his eulogy in his voice, because it will be. And I hope they do the same at Bobcat Goldthwait's funeral.
Oh my gosh! His whole career started because he was entertaining his kids with that voice. It's like his whole career exists because he's a dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well. Anyway, I'll read the statement put out by the family of Gilbert Gottfried really quick. They said, "We are heartbroken to announce the passing of our beloved Gilbert Gottfried after a long illness. In addition to being the most iconic voice in comedy, Gilbert was a wonderful husband, brother, friend, and father to his 2 young children. Although today is a sad day for all of us, please keep laughing as loud as possible in Gilbert's honor. Love, the Gottfried family." And so R.I.P. Gilbert Gottfried. F's in the chat, all of that. And let us know, if you guys were fans of his, what is some of the work that you liked the most? I saw some people saying that he read, 50 Shades of Grey. I think he did a college humor video for that. Mm-hmm. He's just been in what I liked? It's a little thing, but I love he appeared in Family Guy as the voice of this random horse in this one random scene. And he saved Peter Griffin, and Peter was like, "Thank you," or whatever. And the horse was like, "No problem, Peter," and he was like, "Oh, Gilbert Gottfried?" It's like, and they have a little conversation. But yeah, so, rest in peace, Gilbert. And I hope that, people don't forget you. So I don't know what else to say.
And why did he have a German surname? I want to know how that sort of thing happens to. I want to say Chinese guy.
No.
Was he Chinese or Japanese? He was one of those.
Is he?
He's Yes, I think he's Oriental.
What? I didn't think that. I know he squints because he's doing the character, but I always thought he was Jewish.
Well, yeah. You have to wonder how that happened. Much like what's the name from The View? I've already forgotten her name.
That's because she's on The View.
Are you talking about? I know who. Joey Behar. Joy Behar. Joy Behar. Sorry, Joy Behar.
No, the black one.
Oh, I don't know. Whoopi Goldberg? Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg. How do people who can't possibly be Jewish end up with Jewish names?
Well, that's not a real name.
No,
it's not. It's like Jackson Brown or something.
Oddly, no, her name's actually Karen, although spelled differently. Mm-hmm. And you have to wonder why all these people who cannot possibly be Jewish, because Jews are a bunch of racists, end up with Jewish names. I don't think Godfrey is necessarily Jewish; it's just German. But I'd love to look into how these sort of things happen, because I'm a racist too. Why the fuck not? Go on.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Okay. If I remember correctly, Whoopi Goldberg actually admitted that she took the last name because she knew it would give her an advantage in her career in entertainment. That's what she said. I didn't say it. Her words, not mine.
Yeah,
All right.
I think I remember reading that as well.
Mm-hmm. It might have been a joke because it would have been funny, but
Yeah.
it might have also not entirely been a joke. Okay, so we're gonna move on. That was just a brief story that of some recent. I know that there's other little recent things that are sort of popping up. Like there were some bombs discovered in New York. I don't know much about that, so I'm gonna leave that alone. I also know that the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard has officially started. They're in Virginia. Again, I don't know anything about that. I think I'll report on it like later when we have more info, but I do have it in mind. So if you guys have any like interesting updates or knowledge, like if you're in the New York, Brooklyn area and you know something about the explosive devices that were found or some new updates, then feel free to put that in the comments. And if you have been following the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp thing really closely, and there's some things maybe with jury selection, which I think happened yesterday, and you think that there's some important knowledge that we should have, then feel free to add that to the comments. I got to go with what I have because there isn't enough time to go through everything that's going on. So, super chats. Amasang gives us $2 and says, R.I.P. Gilbert Gottfried, and then includes what appears to be a parrot emoji. Thank you, Amasang. I also remember when Gilbert Gottfried played a fire alarm, a home fire alarm. Do you guys remember that? Hey kids, let me teach you about fire safety. So, I mean, he's always popping up in random places. Richard Bier gives us $1.99 and says Gilbert was also the voice of the Aflac duck. Seems like that's a little bit of an underutilization of his talent, but yeah, I'm aware of that since the Aflac duck only says one thing. All right, thank you guys for the super chats. Let me go over to Rumble and take a look if there's any Rumbles or Rumble rants. There are not. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next story. So this one is about Ron DeSantis. And this is like something that's not as well known. So we already know about the anti-grooming bill that Ron DeSantis passed in Florida that everybody's talking about, on one side or the other on the issue. But there is another bill or another program that Ron DeSantis has put into place that fewer people are talking about. So I'm going to tell you guys about it right now because I think this is important. So Florida will create new grant programs to help fathers become more engaged with their children and children whose fathers aren't in their home under a bill signed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis on Monday. The Department of Children and Families will manage the grant program and work with nonprofit organizations to promote the importance of fathers being a part of their children's lives. It will also create a mentor program to help children who don't have a father in their lives at all. Like, they're estranged, they don't know who he is, the mom doesn't know who the father is, things like that. DeSantis said the following, quote, "This has huge ramifications for someone's ability to be able to realize their God-given potential. Any dad who may not be engaged, we want to be able to support. We've got programs, we've got community groups, we've got nonprofits. You're not a man by leaving your kids hung out to dry. You'll need to be there," end quote. DeSantis signed the bill at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice facility and was joined by former coach Tony Dungy. So, and this came from the Miami Herald. So this is like right out of Florida. So, anybody got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they're probably approaching this in part from the conservative standpoint that if a marriage has broken up, it's somehow the man's fault and he walked away. And they're going to find out pretty quickly if they're as open-minded as the leadership seems to be in Florida. Mm-hmm. They're going to find out pretty quickly that the majority of instances where the father is absent, it's because the mother won't let him in the kid's life. And that money's going to end up going, if it doesn't go just to provide environments, to fight some battles. Because there will be still mothers that are working to keep kids away from their fathers. And if they don't address that, they can provide every other means of help possible, every environment, every transportation, every encouragement for men. But if the mothers fight against paternal visitation and paternal custody, they're gonna still end up losing out. The kids are still gonna end up losing out. So
Yeah.
Florida is gonna have to step up if they. And I'm glad, very glad that they've got this started, because it shows an intention of repairing some very serious damage that's been done in the world. Taking
Absolutely.
fathers away from their kids is a horrible thing. And, I'm glad that they have a start, and it is a good start, with the idea as a step in the right direction, with the idea that, maybe recognizing that some dads actually are missing out on time with their kids because of hardship that makes it not possible for them to visit, like not having a place to go, or not having a way to get there from halfway across the state, or not having a place that's safe for the kid to stay and things like that. But they still need to address parental alienation by mothers, and that's going to be the hardest thing. And of course, the other
Yeah.
thing is that mentorship program is going to be great as well, but they're going to have to be very careful with it, because right now children in Florida are being targeted by organizations that want to politically exploit them, and don't think for a second that they'll stay away from that organization. Right? They will absolutely try to infiltrate that and do damage to it, because they do not like the idea of fathers protecting their children from organized political exploitation. So they'll either step in and try to make it theirs, or they'll step in and try to make it so bad that that parents, mothers won't want their children to go there, and the community will be afraid of it. So they'll definitely have to keep an eye on that as well, and I hope they're smart enough to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Obviously, it's going to come at this from a, blue-pilled conservative perspective. But the acknowledgement that, but the acknowledgement and the intent and the understanding that fathers are important is just by itself. I mean, I'll take it. Like, what's the other option? We just like reject everyone who doesn't, try to do something in the exact way that we think they should. I mean, they're going to find out, if they're like paying attention, that
and it sounds
the
like
problem.
they are.
Yeah, I think they're going to find out, though, that it's not just that fathers are running from their responsibility, which is often how it's painted. I know that kind of stuff does happen because women select men who don't want to be fathers, but then have unprotected sex with them. And then they try to entrap them by getting themselves pregnant because they want them to be fathers. And then those men are like, well, I didn't sign up for this. And then they run. That happens. But is that really just the man's fault? I mean, because again,
No.
this is, obviously not. This is the kind of thing that women do every day, all the time, and no one wants to talk about. So they better be paying attention so that they can see when women essentially make their job, which is what their goals are, more difficult, because that's what's probably how it's going to manifest, right? So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, if the man leaves the woman, I mean, if the father leaves the mother, what happens? The mother gets the house and the children. And if the mother leaves the father, what happens? The mother gets the house and the children.
Yeah,
it's the same in both cases.
Yeah.
And yet when people look at a single mother family, they go, well, it must be the man's fault. No. Well, it's the same in both cases. So how the fuck do you know? Why would you blame it on the man on every single occasion when you don't? When all you know is that the mother gets the house and the children, which is the same in both cases. If you want to change anything, change how the fuck the government works.
Exactly. That's the last thing I will say is that, despite the fact that I do believe this is a good thing on its face, we'll have to see how it plays out. I am extremely skeptical of using the government to solve this problem, but I'm hopeful that the overall outcome will actually be less government involvement, because if fathers are in the home with their kids, then that home is less likely to use the government to acquire resources, because they'll get it from a father and a mother working in tandem. So maybe that will be a good outcome, but I don't want to be inconsistent on my skepticism towards the state, regardless of what it's doing. But it might, because this is one of those things that you either try to fix this very slowly, in which case it's too difficult because there's so much damage that's been done that the ground up thing seems less practical, and people are trying to be practical. But on the other hand, you have to be wary that if you do a government-oriented approach, this is going to invite people who want to exploit it for their own gain, people who want to, utilize entryism to get what they want out of it, which is what Hannah warned about, because that's what the state does. The people who are attracted to it tend to be people who want to exploit it. So this may not work out in the way that Ron DeSantis intends. But again, I appreciate the sentiment, and I think it is interesting that no one knows about this, because they're all, obviously they're all distracted by, the other bill, but this one is huge. If you can put fathers back in the home, then the issues in schools will actually reduce, because fathers will be involved with their children, and the mothers will have more time to also be more involved, and they'll be more protective of those children, and they'll be more active. And they might even take other steps. They might, go down the road of promoting charter schools or school choice in general or whatever. So there are downstream effects of putting the dads, or, equipping dads with the resources they need to be able to raise their children, that basically circumvent the whole anti-grooming bill. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it anyway. I think you should. I don't think it goes far enough, in my opinion, but if you put dads back in the home, you may not even need it, or at least it won't get to the point where that's kicking in, because fathers will protect
kids will
their
be
children.
more immune to it.
Yeah. Yep.
The best way to make your kids immune to something like that is to start teaching them early in life, right when they're old enough to start talking and questioning about their personal boundaries and how to understand those and set them and communicate them and defend them, and other people's personal boundaries and other people's right to do the same thing. And if they hit kindergarten with a solid understanding of that, it makes it a lot more difficult for somebody to come along and command them to believe themselves to be someone they are not. And in terms of that, I'll have a lot more to say about it when we actually talk about that bill. But I will say this, for Florida, Florida's got 50-50 shared parenting. And I believe that was also because of Ron DeSantis and the Republicans. So Florida is actually on good footing here, in that they're making the effort to go down the right path, where they're they're recognizing the value of fathers. The really tough part, in terms of custody, besides the obvious parental alienation after a divorce, because women get very angry at men for surviving being abandoned by their wives for some stupid reason. Instead of being like, okay, I'm out, I'm happy, I'm moving on, they get bitchy about it, right? But single moms, it's a lot harder with single moms, because they don't have to tell who the father is. They can get away with saying, I don't know, I was drunk, I was high, I slept with 15 guys and I don't know which one it was, or any of that. Yeah, I was raped or whatever. And the state really can't do anything about that. And the only protection a guy has makes him vulnerable to a child support obligation. And that's by, if they have a putative father registry, then you if you've been dating a gal, you can actually fill out a thing for the putative father registry. But then if she gets pregnant and she wants child support, she can be like, well, that guy's on the putative father registry as the reputed father of my child, so he owes it and then you have to fight that if you're not. So there does need to be a change of law in regard to what rights a father has if a woman conceives a child with him outside of wedlock and he wants to be a dad, but only if it's his child for real and for sure. And like that's something that we're way behind in every state in the union in protecting.
Yeah. Well, who would have thought the person leading the charge would be the Florida man? It's who would have thought? Base Florida man. The one time when I report on it does not make me cringe. It's like it's good stuff overall. It's good stuff. So, all right. Well, anyway, thank you, Ron DeSantis. I hope this works out. We'll keep an eye on what's going on down there, and also hopefully other states will follow suit. So maybe, I get that the grooming bill is a big deal, but if you know people talking about it, maybe also tell them about this other bill, especially if they're MRAs that are like angry about the anti-grooming bill because they watch CNN, but they're not aware of this more pro-family stuff. So let us know in the comments what you guys think. Let me read your super chats and we're going to move on to the next story. So Richard Bier gives us $4.99 and says, there is a class of woman for whom a baby is a monthly paycheck and nothing else. Unless that attitude changes, this will continue to repeat. Well, yeah, that is a problem. And I don't know what else we can, I don't know how big a problem that is, but I do know that in some parts of the country, that is a thing.
It's a systemic problem, and I can say that because during the time when my family was down on our luck bad enough that for a few months we used the system, I sat in the waiting room and listened to a caseworker actually help a woman figure out the maximum that she could collect from each of her 4 baby daddies without becoming ineligible for payments from the state and all the benefits that she was getting from the state. And a mother with children, multiple children, who does not collect too much child support to tip the scales can collect more money than she would get paid to be a school teacher in terms of benefits. She won't get all cash. She'll get her house paid for or apartment. She'll get money for her utilities. She'll get grocery expenses. She'll get free clothing. She'll get a free refrigerator. She'll get her car repairs paid for or her transportation underwritten. She'll get daycare for her children. Just all kinds of things, medical expenses, and it's more likely under those circumstances, because it is a poverty situation with bad nutrition and bad living arrangements and stuff in terms of how they affect your health, that a mother who's having babies under that circumstances is going to have a baby whose health is affected by birth injuries, and those can be lifelong. And so you're looking at a lifelong need then for government funded medical care. So this is definitely a systemic issue. Like we hear about systemic discrimination all the time. This is systemic discrimination against children.
Yep.
And taxpayers, by the way. Imagine a world in which taxpayers weren't punished for everything, for all of women's bad decisions.
And by taxpayers, we mean men, because men pay taxes, and essentially after all of the government benefits that are given to women, we don't.
Yeah, well, no,
even if we do, we don't.
You're a net drain on the taxes.
Imagine a world in which taxpayers weren't even a thing, or at least if we didn't extort so much fucking money from taxpayers to give the government everything they want to do, which is to pay women for their poor choices. Can anyone even imagine such a world? Well, it must be anarchy. If you don't want the Big Brother future, it must mean you want the fucking Mad Max future. There's
Hey,
there's no in between.
Yeah. It's absolute totalitarian government control, or it's fucking, like Somalia.
Anarchy doesn't
I've
have to
actually,
be chaos.
no, of course not. Of course not. But this is the way it's framed. You know who
Of
came
course.
out as an anarchist recently? Woody Harrelson. I believe it. And I don't think in the Antifa
that's
sense.
fitting.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson. Okay. So let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I do want to, get to the next story. Let's look at your super chats here. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you, Richard. Meredith G gives us $5 and says, honey for the badgers to pay the internet bill. Thank you guys for your kind donations. So now we're going to move on to the next story. This is actually one of the ones I actually put in. So, this is about an OnlyFans model. So an OnlyFans model, you guys might have heard about this already, has allegedly stabbed her boyfriend to death in Florida. Police approached the residence of the 22-year-old Courtney Tailor, pictured here on the left, obviously, who had called 911 April the 3rd at around 5 p.m. There they discovered Tailor's boyfriend, the 27-year-old Christian Obumseli, who's pictured on the right there, suffering from a single stab wound to the shoulder. Obumseli was rushed to a nearby hospital where he would later die, and Tailor was immediately detained. While being detained, Tailor made multiple suicide threats and was taken to a mental institution for observation. Police have, for the moment, ruled the incident a domestic dispute. Friends and neighbors indicate that this was far from the first time the couple had domestic disputes. Police have been called multiple times to their residence in the past. Friends of Obumseli claim that while he never physically assaulted Tailor, she had been seen hitting him in the past. Friends and family of Obumseli have set up a GoFundMe. Organizers of it have stated, quote, Christian was extremely compassionate with a desire always to uplift those around him. He did not deserve for his life to be cut short by a heinous act of violence, end quote. The investigation into his death is still ongoing, and Tailor has not been charged with anything as of yet.
Oh, okay. He was stabbed in the shoulder and he died. As far as I know, there are no vital organs anywhere in the vicinity of the shoulder. To die
There's
from
a vital artery.
There's an artery, but there's no. To die from a shoulder wound, you need to have been bleeding out for a long time. It needs to have been several hours of your blood gushing from that artery. It's the kind of wound that can be fixed as long as you get to hospital in good time. This would suggest that he didn't get to the hospital in good time. He was sat there bleeding to death for hours while he was presumably told, fuck you, it's nothing, by this psychotic bitch as she continued to abuse him. And she hasn't been charged with anything. And she probably won't be. That's how the Duluth model works, not just for the police, but for the courts. In contrast, by the way, notice how in the context of sport, you're not allowed to say men are stronger than women. That's why it's apparently perfectly fine that a biological man can compete in women's sports, because men are axiomatically not stronger than women, as long as that strength is a good thing that results in laudable achievement. But in the context of domestic violence or interpersonal violence, you're allowed to say, nay, compelled to say, men are stronger than women. That's how the Duluth model works. Much like when Joe Biden says anything a man can do, a woman can do just as well, but it's never okay for a man to raise his hand to a woman. Somehow, those two things make sense together. What's the only consistent principle here? It's man bad, woman good. Men are only stronger than women in the context of something bad. Therefore, it follows men are better than women at violence in a domestic or interpersonal context, but not in a cage match context. So, fuck everyone who tries to frame any of this trans issue as the erasure of women, or the oppression of women, or a detriment to the safety of women. The only consistency is the erasure of anything good about men or masculinity. That's what got us here, to this intrinsically self-contradictory predicament. A man can do whatever he likes to a woman as long as it's in the context in which he has officially denounced his masculinity. That's what's important. That's what's important to these oikophobic misandrists. The absolute erasure of the identity of masculinity. Biology be damned. It doesn't matter if you're caving in the skulls of women in a pay-per-view event. All that matters is that you denounce your masculinity. If you don't denounce your masculinity, or if you haven't in an official context, go ahead and get stabbed to death in your own home and fuck yourself. Nobody cares. But if you do denounce your masculinity, go ahead and beat a woman into a fine paste. Fuck her. Nobody cares. That's how important it is to these people that we eradicate the recognized existence of masculinity in its most abstract of contexts. And it's only going to keep getting worse on both sides of this contradiction, as long as the only reaction anyone has is, look what's happening to the poor women. Woe, oh, woe. Oh, woe is women. Woe is the predicament of femininity. Let's carry on denouncing masculinity.
Yeah.
You're only making the problem worse, because the denouncement of masculinity is the problem in both cases, on both sides. And yes, I mean these conservatives and these so-called TERFs who are trying to fight against intersectional feminists by playing the women worsting card. You are not helping. You are in exactly the same trajectory as the people you think you're opposing. This is the result of misandry. And you're so far gone that you can only see it as misogyny. Snap the fuck out of it, all of you. I've veered off the topic here, but only a little bit. It's all connected. Repeal the Duluth model and repeal the fucking Leah Thomas model. Men are stronger than women by and large, but they are not more violent than women by and large. That's difficult. It's difficult for people to understand because it makes it sound like men aren't necessarily worse than women. Weird, I know, but this is a weird show.
It's a hard thing to swallow. Yeah.
Here at Honey Badger Radio, we talk about weird things. Get on board if you like.
I would even go so far to say women are more violent than men when it comes to situations in which they feel like they can't be retaliated against. Right? Men take risky violence, and that's why they get caught. That's why the men are more likely to be arrested and charged and convicted when they commit a violent crime. Women engage in violence when they feel that people will have sympathy for them as a victim or as a weaker person, as a harmless person, and so on, or when they have spent a lifetime doing that and they've gotten comfortable engaging in violence and they don't expect to face any repercussions. But you don't see as many women risking their reputations by engaging in violence when they're going to get caught, when they're going to get criticized for it, when they're going to be taken seriously, until they've gotten to that point. And this story isn't any different, right? What you see earlier in the story is the fact that people knew this woman was violent toward this man. This was not the first time that she hurt him. This was not the first time that she demonstrated that she was that kind of person that would actually use violence instead of negotiation and diplomacy to solve a conflict, right? And what did we get out of this? Police, well, it's a domestic dispute, even though she actively killed him. Her actions were the ones that led to his death. We can't charge her for any kind of homicide, even negligent homicide, because it was what? A domestic. And where have we heard that before? But in the complaints that feminists used to get the Violence Against Women Act passed in the first place, in which they lied and stated that this was the condition that women were under when men committed acts of violence against their wives and girlfriends, where the police would treat it as a lesser thing because it was a domestic. But if you go back and look at court records and news stories and laws, actually men who were violent toward their partners were subject to things like being tied to a post and horsewhipped, being jailed for days or weeks while a decision was made as to whether or not they were guilty, and then retained in jail. And there was the only dilemma about putting them in jail wasn't about whether they did anything wrong, whether there was a difference between domestic violence and other types of violence, or anything like, whether it was some kind of a right. No, the only dilemma judges had was, how is the woman going to support herself when the man who beat her is in jail? So they basically changed laws so that men who were convicted of domestic violence would still be responsible for supporting their family while they were being punished. And that's where the whipping post comes in. That, he might be down for a couple of days after that, but he won't be in jail for a year, so he can go back to work and, pay the bills, knowing that if she goes to the police again and says he hit her again, he's going to have that treatment again. The state's going to hit him harder. And that's the environment in which feminists went to the state and said, you're not doing enough about domestic violence. We need a more serious law. Take away the men's due process rights. But nobody has said anything like that on men's behalf, right? Nobody has come along and said, well, we can't just call it a domestic and not charge the abuser with homicide when she stabs a man to death. Because it doesn't matter if you stabbed once or 50 times. If you stab somebody and they bleed to death, you stab them to death.
Yeah.
So this is a complete and utter travesty of justice. This is a complete and utter shit show in terms of, how dare they not charge this woman? If this was a man, not only would he have been charged, he would have been nationally demonized. He would be being used as an example in the latest campaigns against violence against women, right? The latest campaigns for money for all the organizations that fight tooth and nail to make sure that all of the resources for abuse victims within household abuse goes to treat women and take care of women and doesn't help men at all, right? They would be using that. But nobody's talking about this but people like us.
Yeah. I guess we'll see if there is going to be a charge, but it is wild that, given everything that we know, that this is even still up for, I guess, debate, or it's in deliberation or whatever, this investigation. But there is some other things I wanted to add to this. So one, it's a little bit surreal. It's a little bit surreal because I know who this person is, and this woman. I don't know a lot of sort of models or e-celebs, but there are some streams that I did a while back where I would talk about how I would use this woman's photos as references to draw from. So I would use models' pictures as references to make drawings. And I knew about Courtney Tailor. That I didn't know that wasn't her real name, but I knew about her because I did use her as a model, years ago when I was going to school, and I had to do these sort of anatomy drawings. So I'd make it fun for myself. And it was weird because you would think that, there's so many Instagram models out there, and there's so many, a certain percentage of them are probably have issues or whatever. And then within that, there might be another subset that might even be violent, and then there's a subset within that might even be murderous, and it just so happens that this woman checks all the boxes. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, because we all know, like, she could have an angel face, she could have a perfect body, but absolutely be psycho, and you have to be careful with that. In fact, sometimes I wonder if really attractive women are more prone to these things because their life is probably so different from other people based on their looks. So, but that was the first thing. It's
if
surreal.
She's a narcissist, it's more likely to be tolerated if people see it as her being a rightful narcissist. And when you see a woman who goes into a profession that it hinges on her looks specifically, like modeling, it's a little bit more like, again, I don't know necessarily that you could say more people in this profession are likely to be narcissists, but I think more narcissists in this profession are likely to get away with allowing it to become prevalent, the behavior to become prevalent in their behavior, and it's going to be tolerated, and it's more likely to become dysfunctional to a level where it's a detriment to their relationship to other people and their control over their own behavior in regard to, like, breaking people's boundaries and engaging in abuse against other people. And this is an end result of something like that, where, narcissism gets tolerated to the point where she feels like, she's justified in the moment in doing something like that because she's angry.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention, so I wanted to mention something that is about her, but it's not necessarily about the incident, so that you guys can get maybe an idea of what kind of person she is. And I just looked this up. So she announced on a podcast called We in Miami, because, she's in Florida. So, and she was on a podcast, and this is what the picture is from, I think, the podcast. And she said, I only date rich black guys. Who was accused of killing Christian Tailor, who's accused of killing Christian Obumseli, 27. Also revealed that she does not like to be controlled in any situation besides the bedroom. In my life, I don't like anyone to tell me what to do, said Tailor, whose real name is Courtney Tailor. So that sounds like you're a control freak in your relationships, the show host said, and then laughed at it. And then the host said later at another point in the conversation, so you're toxic. And then she says, yeah, while standing and showing off her lucrative curves. Kind of crazy, but again,
she's gonna have a rough time in jail.
Yeah, so she sounds like a mess. And I don't know, like, if, and the other thing too is that it is confirmed that Obumseli, according to, well, maybe not confirmed, but according to friends of the couple, Obumseli never laid a hand on her, but she often would belittle and beat him and hit him, and he put up with it. So, I know why, because, he thought she was hot, but guys, like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me, but if somebody just says, oh, I only like these kinds of guys, and it's some kind of like thing about your race or your ethnicity, I don't think that's enough to go off of. And especially if she overtly says rich guys. Like, why? Why are you worth that kind of money? So I'm just saying it speaks to the quality of this person. And
plus exoticism, as I believe Sarkeesian and many others have called it. The men only like, shall we say, Caucasian men only like Japanese women or even black women because of this exoticization fetish.
Yeah.
In the meantime, women watch all these adverts that have nothing but white women and black men in them, and they can't possibly be guilty of fetishization or exoticization. They hate white men and they love black men, perhaps because of the shit they've been taught in university, and then they end up abusing the men in which they end up in relationships with.
Yeah.
And they end up abusing them just as much as they would end up abusing the white men that they might otherwise have ended up in relationships with. Like, maybe the shit they're being taught in universities is all wrong in the first place, and it's what's wrong with all of this.
Yep. I will also say one last thing. Willing to bet that she's ratchet as fuck. She doesn't look it because she's a model, but I bet she's ratchet as fuck. And I think that
never
come
stops
out.
anybody.
No, exactly. I'm just saying, like, you can, doll her up and do her hair and put her in nice clothes and like have her smile sweetly, but like once the cameras turn off, she's probably just another hood rat that just happens to be paler than most. So that's my guess. But let us know what you guys think about. We're gonna move on because I don't have anything else to add except
to say.
Yeah.
If you have a friend who is going through an abuse situation with his partner, and even if the only thing you're seeing is verbal abuse, and verbal abuse can even be you hearing all the time her lambasting him. We agreed that we would do this, and you didn't hold up your end of the deal, which is really woman for I ordered you to do this and you didn't do it. Don't back away from the relationship and give him his space. Talk to him about it. Work on him about it. And you don't have to be blunt. Just, you can be subtle. You can start small, but try to pry that guy away from the control of that woman to the degree where he can make a decision without having her coerce him into staying in that kind of relationship. Because a lot of women do coerce men into staying in that kind of relationship, and document the shit out of it. Like, keep a journal, keep recordings if you guys are doing stuff together with recordings, and don't get rid of those. If she comes in and is abusive, and mark stuff on your calendar, because you'll need to be ready to help him if he needs to get out of that situation and there are financial complications, or they have kids together or anything like that. Be the friend that's ready to go to court and say, on this date at this time, I saw her throw a knickknack off the shelf at him because she was mad that it took him too long to drive the kids home from school, or he was mad he gave the kids a snack before dinner, and just anything like that. Don't back away. Don't be scared away from your friendship with a guy by a psycho bitch. Because he needs you more in that circumstance than he ever did under any other circumstance in his life.
Yeah. And protect our Nigerian immigrant men. Save them from these fucking thirst traps, and tell them to have some self-respect. Because, like, how are you going to stay in a relationship with someone who's constantly abusing you and not think one day she might completely flip out and she might get away with killing you? Is it really worth it? Is it really? Is the ass that good? Somehow I have my doubts. So let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. And I'm going to move on to the next story. First, I'll read some super chats. So I think I read this one already. Meredith G gives us $5 and says, honey for the badgers to pay the internet bill. If I already read that, I apologize. But thank you.
That's all she ever says. Thank you, Meredith G.
Thank you, Meredith.
That's all you ever say.
Almost. I mean, a lot of times she adds like a lot of like, she'll make a post that is a really interesting take on a specific story, but she at least gives us one of these, and that I appreciate it.
We all appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, we do. Richard Beer gives us $1.99 and says maybe she should be charged with lynching. And then I got a couple of super chows Allison sent me, so I should read those out. First, I got one. Let me see. Hold on. Quick. From John Doe, who sent us $10 through the super chow. To go there, go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and you'll be able to send us, if you want to send some, like super chat money essentially, but without either giving YouTube a bunch of the money because they take like half, or you want to make sure that whatever you're going to put through actually gets seen and read by us, because sometimes YouTube will not let the super chats go through. I don't know what the criteria is for that. Then yeah, you can go to feedthebadger.com/just the tip. So we got one from John Doe for $10, and he just says War and Peace, which is a joke from yesterday where Allison said you can put in like a longer message if you want, just don't put in War and Peace, like the book itself. And they put in the title. And then we got one from Cam D for $5. That's another super chat, and they included no text that we know of. So I hope that you meant to do that, and if you did, thank you so much. If not, you can send us a, like just a comment and tag Badger Live Streams in your post so I see it. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next story. This one is kind of wild. A father facing criminal prosecution for a tweet. Yes, criminal prosecution for a tweet accusing a far-left education activist of grooming got a reprieve on Thursday when prosecutors told the judge they would not seek to move forward with the prosecution. This is from the assistant prosecutor Paul Vitale, wrote this in a court filing, quote, after a review of the facts and evidence for the 4 claims brought by Mr. Jorge Torrico, the Commonwealth does not believe there is sufficient evidence to prosecute the above-mentioned charges, according to Fairfax County, Virginia's assistant prosecutor Paul Vitale, in a court filing. Harry Jackson, a black father with a child who attends a prestigious magnet school, opposed efforts by far-left activists to remove the school's admission exam.
What's a magnet school? How do they work?
A magnet school is basically like a school that it's called a magnet school because it's meant to attract the highest achieving students in the area. So I used to go to a magnet school when I was in 6th to 8th grade. And it's basically like, I did my testing. I don't know if it was the Iowa test or there was another one, but I did some testing, and a school saw my score and they offered me a seat at the magnet school. And of course my mother was excited and proud, and I went to it. So it's basically like a school that attracts like the highest achievers. It's still usually a public school in a lot of cases. Or it's like within a public school and they may have a gifted program or a magnet program. Some high schools have that too.
Yeah.
So, okay. So anyway, that's a magnet school. It's basically like a high achieving school. Harry Jackson, black father with a child who attends a prestigious magnet school, opposed efforts by far-left activists to remove the school's admission exam. Jackson had tweeted about Torrico, accusing him of being a groomer for attending a parent-teacher-student association meeting even though he did not have a child at the school, and for attempting to interact with the student president. On February 23rd, 2022, Jackson appeared in court and his lawyer, Marina Medvin, asked for the charges to be dismissed, calling them unconstitutional. Well, obviously. The Fairfax prosecutor's office did not agree, instead asking for a postponement so it could investigate. Medvin said in court documents, the top prosecutor in Fairfax is Steve Toscano, a progressive and who narrowly won his primary election with the help of funding from George Soros, and who was pledged not to prosecute minor crimes that, quote, disproportionately hurt people of color, end quote, and who routinely declines to pursue crimes that he deems to be minor. The summons said Jackson's words could break the law by being insults that, quote, tend to violence and breach of the peace, end quote. This is the rationalization for calling a teacher a groomer, is that it could tend to violence. You know how, like,
so in
calling
other words,
someone,
they're fighting words.
That's what they're trying to imply. Like
Jeez.
How if you call someone a Nazi and you call for people to beat Nazis, then it might result in people being hit because they were called Nazis. It's a similar rationalization. I just pulled that out of my ass. I don't have any any examples in recent history of any of that happening. But you get it, right? It's kind of it's absurd.
You can't call people socialists, but you can call people nationalists. Both of these are present in the definition of National Socialist, but nationalist. Yes, you can call people that, but socialist, no, you can't call people that.
Well, if you do, we don't even associate that with something negative. So it wouldn't have an effect, right?
If you call someone a socialist, it's like, you don't know what that means. None of that applies to any of this. But if you call someone a nationalist, yes, absolutely. Wait, are you criticizing the people I don't like? Good.
Yeah.
Then yes, you absolutely can call people that.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, so anyway, the summons said that Jackson's words could break the law by being insults that tend to violence and breach of the peace. But there was nothing about calling an activist behavior grooming that was a call for violence, she said. The summons invoked an obscure law enacted in 1950, making it illegal to impugn the chastity of a woman. In a filing on Thursday, Toscano's office moved to null pros the case, which means it is not seeking to move forward, but could refile the charges. Medvin said that's not enough. Medvin said in a court filing, the government's request is a constitutional cop-out. By seeking to null Prosky, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that pronunciation. Instead of joining defendant in his motion to dismiss and securing dismissal on constitutional grounds, the Commonwealth's Attorney Office is opening the door to continued harassment of Harry Jackson and any other individual whom the complainant and the others like him find offensive. The defendant is seeking enforcement of his constitutional right to free speech. The defendant is seeking dismissal with prejudice, a true closure in a criminal case.
So what's interesting is the Supreme Court just recently ruled that to sue an officer for false arrest, it's not required that you be acquitted. If they drop the charges because the arrest was false, and you can prove that, like if the arrest wasn't merited under the law, then you still can sue and you still can win. So it will be interesting to see if this guy decides to pursue any such course of action. I would, under that circumstance, absolutely, if I was him, turn around and sue the officer that arrested and the department that sent the officer and anybody else I could hold responsible for this, because they should not be turning around and arresting people for name calling. And this law itself has probably never been tested as far as constitutionality, but a prosecutor today and a police department today should be reasonably expected to know that under the First Amendment, it's not permissible to outlaw name calling, even if name calling were to inspire someone to act on their own violent impulses. So, it's not the same as trying to use free speech law to say, well, I have the right to hire a hitman because that requires speech. No, it's still illegal to pay somebody to kill for you, right? But using free speech law to cover, hey, I called somebody a name, that definitely should not be prosecuted under the law. You should not be prosecuted for calling somebody a name, no matter how bad that name is.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a really disproportionate reaction too, right? For this teacher, activist, really more like a progressive activist, which they're all over education. For them to respond by saying, well, that guy shouldn't be allowed to say that about me, even though I'm certain that that's not actually true about me, but I think he should be arrested anyways. So, I mean, that sort of reveals a lot about, the guy this teacher, right? I guess I don't know. It's wild. Like this is like how close we are to losing our First Amendment. By the way, is constantly under attack by these people because they don't think that you should be able to call them what they are, but that they should have the right to call you what you're not. So, this is like obviously the iron law of woke projection. It's basically accuse your opponents of the thing that you're doing. And that's why they call everyone Nazis that they don't like, because they're the Nazis. That's why, they hate it when you call them groomers, because they don't have, they actually try to call you that in response, like I've had that happen to me with a young lady who came after me on my Facebook page and tried to accuse me of being a groomer because I was against grooming. And I called it out. So,
and by the way,
wild.
we should not just be calling that grooming. We should be referring to it as conversion therapy, because what the Florida anti-grooming law was about. It was a response to teachers who admitted publicly on their social media that they were recruiting students to a secret LGBTQ club based on their supposition that the students exhibited character traits or personality traits that made them peg the students as potentially gay or potentially trans and so on. And so then they take those students and they get them into that club, and then they start convincing them, oh yeah, you're actually gay. Oh yeah, you're actually trans. Oh yeah, you're actually non-binary, when the student had no such thing going on in their lives prior to that. And it was secret from the parents. The students did not tell the parents. The teachers did not disclose to the parents. The school did not disclose the club, and so on. So that was actually what they were talking about in Florida when they were accusing these parents of grooming. But when you browbeat somebody into changing their identity, or you browbeat somebody into changing their stated sexual preference and then trying to live that change, that is conversion therapy. And it should be repugnant to any person who knows the history of conversion therapy, including anybody who is LGBTQ plus whatever, who has been tricked into supporting the Disney side of this Florida controversy. The idea that teachers should be doing this with kids. This is not a victory over homophobes and transphobes. This is conversion therapy as an attack on people who are not any kind of gender identity other than standard, the norm, which, as I've said before, we need to also stop putting moral judgment values on normal and abnormal. Normal and abnormal are not good and bad. Geniuses are abnormal. Totally abnormal. Being a genius is incredibly abnormal. Very rare. And there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's a good thing, right? Being super strong is abnormal, right? Being disabled is also abnormal. Nothing morally wrong with either of those circumstances. There are just different needs, different capabilities, and so on, right? So when somebody is abnormal because they have a different gender identity or a different sexuality, there shouldn't be a moral judgment attached to that either. Neither bad nor good. It's nothing. It's not special. It's not anything. It's just a small aspect of the individual's life. And unfortunately, we have this division both inside and outside of the LGBT, community, if you want to call it that. I think population is better because we're definitely not a community.
Exactly.
But in any case, when you have this division between people who want to recruit and convert versus people who are just like, hey, you know what? Everybody should be able to live their lives without getting the shit beat out of them for who they love and how they look, as long as they're not doing anything to somebody else in violation of those other people's rights, then you can't have a movement. You have two movements and they're opposed to each other. But if you are part of that population, right? If you're one of us, you should be damned opposed to the idea of teachers or any other group that's a state-imposed group that the public does not have the right at this point to say, our kids are not going to have anything to do with your group. We are not going to be subject to your rule, right? Any group like that. You should be absolutely opposed to any group like that using any kind of conversion therapy. And you should be able to identify this as conversion therapy and say no. And stop repeating the stupid "don't say gay" myth, because it's bullshit. This is grooming. Grooming is breaking down your boundaries to get you to accept the unacceptable, right? But this is conversion therapy. And it needs to be stopped. We should not be subjecting kids to conversion therapy to make them gay or straight, trans or not trans, cis, gender, whatever 50 different identities you want to list, or cis, none of that. None of that should be happening. Let them be kids.
Well, obviously, but like it's not the straight people that are doing this to these kids. They're not showing up like at school saying, "Let me tell you about all the bitches I boned, over the weekend." Like that.
It's a tiny portion of the LGBTQ community that are progressives.
Yeah, it's the G Mafia. That's why I call them the G Mafia, because they don't represent the LGBT population. They represent a kind of activist class within or in the peripheral of that population, because I think that sometimes those people aren't even LGBT. They just want to queerify or indoctrinate children, and it could be because they are actually pedophiles or groomers, but it could also be because they feel as though like queerness or being gay or bisexual or trans is not something that you're born with, which is what we have basically like been told to believe or accept about that portion of the population. But now it's all socialized. And so because they believe that all things are socialized, everything is permissible, and all things are constructed, therefore it puts them in their mind, in their heads, that, oh, wait a minute, if I know that kids are just gay and then that gayness is just waiting to come out if the conditions are right, then all I have to do is encourage that in them, because now it's not like the whole Lady Gaga song, Born This Way. That's old news. That's like biological determinism. That's no longer the argument now. That's a dead argument. That's problematic. That's not what we're doing. Now we're doing queer theory is what is used to bring out the true self in children that we know is there because we've decided it, because we can read minds, and now we're going to make your kids realize their own queerness. That's the new thing. So it's all about, tabula rasa, blank slate. We're going to make your kids this way. And it's like Mr. 0303 said in the after show, we talked about it yesterday. He said it's like the way that they reproduce, since they don't reproduce in the normal way that most people do. So they basically create activists. And you can look at the work of people that were involved with the Frankfurt School and all of the people that followed them, Paolo Fieri, and all these other guys. And you will see over and over and over and over and over, especially the people who are making education into a political tool to groom children. And again, when I say groom children, I don't necessarily mean in the queer sense, because CRT is another means by which you do that. It's essentially taking kids who are blank slates that want to please their their teachers, their authority figures in their life, and then you basically turn them into activists. And you do it with these approaches, whether it's queer theory, feminism, or critical race theory, which basically are all part of the same, blob. So that's the reason they're doing it, is because they believe that all of this stuff is socialized. So they're doing queer theory to your kids.
Yeah, it's not even gay people who are doing this to us. It's not even trans people who are doing this to us.
Yeah.
It's
We're activists.
dare I say cis white college women who are doing this to us, and they're using gay people as their shield. They're using trans people as their shield. They're using non-white people as their shield because they just hate cis white het men.
Mm-hmm.
And they can do all of this. And if you complain about what they're doing, they just go, well, you hate trans people, you hate non-white people, you hate gay people. Because they just fucking hate cis white. They just hate. I think
they hate themselves, but they take it out on men.
No, they hate men. They hate men.
Well, you know what?
And they will use anything as shields, including gay people, including trans people, including non-white people. They're just using all of these people as their shields, so that they can fuck over cis white men because they can get away with it. Like, why do they do this? For the same reason dogs lick their junk, because they fucking can.
Yeah,
because that's what they've set up as the people they can set up as the people they hate.
Yeah, for the same reason that Courtney Tailor stabbed her boyfriend to death, because she could. So I mean, like, you know, like what anyway, that's right. That's what's going on. So I think that was the only thing I wanted to add. So I'm going to move on to the next story. We got like 2 more to go. One of them is going to be kind of short. All right, so let's look at the super chats. So Richard B. here gives us $4.99 and says, apply the bite model of cult indoctrination. How does it sound in that framework? Could that be another angle to counter this conduct? Well, no, it's been described as a cult, and obviously there is a lot of that in there. I don't think that's necessarily... Look, I don't think that it's necessary for us to go into overly explained ways to show why this is bad. The only people you need to convince are the parents of these kids. And there's a number of, you have to like operate at the level that they can understand. So if you go into like a big history of social emotional learning and like, you know, Herbert Marcuse and repressive tolerance and all that, it's not going to click with them because they're just worried about their kid. They don't need a history lesson. So you just got to make it very simple and say they're grooming your kids for political reasons. And that's all you need to know. Or they're trying to reprogram your kids so that they can shape them in the way that they think they should be. If you need to, or if it helps, you could even use religious language. You could say, because, you know, a lot of people in America are Christian. So if you can explain it like, look, they're playing God with your kids because that's what they're doing, you know, that's enough, right?
They're subjecting your kids to conversion therapy.
Yeah, they're subjecting your kids to conversion therapy. But as far as like, it would only work on the parents because the actual activists, the people doing this, there is no amount of logic. And I can't make this statement enough of a thing that is very important for people to understand. There is no amount of logic or reason that's going to change their mind. They don't care. They don't care. They have goals, full stop, period. That's it. They don't have rationality. They don't have a logic. They just have goals. They have no principles. There is nothing else. And they have to be stopped. Like if you lose your kids, it's over. There's nothing left to fight for. There's nothing left. So you have to understand this. The time to try to rationalize is way past over, as far as I'm concerned. If someone is having like a change of heart, then you welcome them in and you talk to them. But there is like, I don't know what the compromise between, you know, subjecting children to woke conversion therapy and not subject it. Like, I don't know where the middle ground is there. Some grooming, no, unacceptable, right? You have to draw the line. You have to say, no, you're wrong full stop, right? And you have to stop them. There's nothing else. There's no rationalizing. There's no like, oh, well, if I put this in this other framework, then you'll have to submit to the fact that you're wrong. No, they can't admit that they're wrong. They can't. They are incapable of it because they have invested so much time, money. They've done a lot of harm already to themselves, to their families, to their friend group, to children. They cannot possibly conceive of like saying, having a moment of humility, which is literally the only thing they would need to do to make everything right, but they can't do it. That it's impossible. So they're just going to have to be allowed to suffer for their own choices, and you have to protect the innocent from them because they will try to take everyone down with them.
There's two groups of people involved in doing this, right? There's one group that is out and out malicious. They're misandric. They hate men, and they see all vulnerable people as political currency that they can spend to hurt men, right? It's that, and this is something that's been going on for a long time. It goes right back to the very TERFs that are opposing this now, actually, where they want to break down everything about the relationship between men and women. Because if the relationship between men and women is destroyed, then people are easier to control. You can control men by making your goals their goals, and you can control women by making your fears their fears, even if they're not your real goals and your real fears. And they're malicious. There is no moral or ethical argument you can make to them because they are unethical and they are immoral or even amoral. So they're going to use people however they see fit. And when you call them out for it, they're going to gaslight you, right? The other half of this is people who are so broken by being involved with this mob for so long that their minds are not capable of accepting and recognizing any logic that goes against the ideology and the dogma that they have accepted. They are useful idiots. And you cannot convert useful idiots. They have to come to an epiphany themselves, right? The only people that you can talk to in regard to this are the members of the community that didn't know this stuff was going on and aren't already indoctrinated one way or another. And most people out in the community are going to understand those two things, discussing the grooming aspect of it, the gaslighting, because grooming is just gaslighting with different descriptions. And they're going to understand the conversion therapy aspect of it, because people generally know what that is, because we've all heard about how bad it is and how it doesn't work because gay people are born that way, right? And because gender dysphoria is not just a psychological issue, but a brain chemistry issue. So as long as we accept that gay people are born gay and gender dysphoria is a brain chemistry issue and not just a way of thinking, then conversion therapy is always wrong, no matter what direction it takes. Very, very easy discussion to have. Mm-hmm. And gaslighting is always gaslighting, whether you're doing it to adults or children. And exploitation is always malicious, whether you mean for it to be or not.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you, Richard, for that super chat. Zeranx gives us a Rumble rant for $5. And he says, conversion therapy meaning the Borg are gonna Borg. Or are they replicants from SG-1 for those who watch that show? They're certainly not Skrulls. My nerd cred is spent. Yeah, Skrulls are no longer a representative of shape-shifting communists anymore that literally come from a hive planet. They are now Mexicans, basically. So thanks, and Marvel.
Wait, what?
The Borg at least have a queen. The collective we're dealing with doesn't even have a queen. It just has it just has a machine. It just has Skynet, which I guess in Terminator 3 finally has the face of Helena Bonham Carter. Yeah. But at this point, I mean, the government is basically a machine that was built by humans to serve the humans of the country in which it's built. But at this point, it's a machine that fucking hates the people of the country in which it's built.
Mm-hmm.
And it has no particular centralized personality. It's just a machine. The government is just a machine that was built before computers, by the way. So don't go blaming any of this on Alan Turing. No, this is a machine that was built before what we call computers. The government is a carbon machine made of human parts.
Yeah.
It's not made of silicon parts. It's made of human parts. It's made of carbon human parts, and we built it to serve the humans who built it. But it's already at the point where it has nothing but contempt for the humans who built it. Whether it's the UK or the US or Canada or Australia, it's a machine that already hates the very people it's supposed to serve, and yet we keep just believing everything it tells us.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I don't fucking know what, because we've already reached that point where we'd rather just keep believing everything the machine tells us, the machine built by us.
Yeah.
Probably that's why. Because because we can't imagine why a machine built by humans wouldn't act in the interests of humans, but it doesn't. Even though it's a machine still made of humans, still made of government employees.
Mm-hmm.
How can a machine made of government employees not act in the interests of the humans it's supposed to serve? But it doesn't. It's I'm going big L libertarian at this point. But yeah, we need to.
It's all
we need to remove this fucking machine, or at least do away with the power that this machine has.
Yeah,
and go back to monkey.
Yeah, right.
It's all in that recipe book that we gave it, right? That instruction manual to serve man.
Yeah.
They took that to heart.
Yeah. Okay, I got another super chat from Amasang for $2, and he says, "I have no mouth and I must scream." Thank you for that, and we're going to move on to the next story. I'm kind of surprised by this. I'm not even sure if this is real, but apparently it is. So this is bimec.com. And it's advertising a product called the Bimec SLV, the new contraception for men. And I'm gonna read this blurb about this. So, we make contraception a man's business. With the Bimec SLV, the spermatic duct valve from Clemens Bimec. One valve is mounted on each spermatic duct and disrupts the flow of sperm cells when closed. The user is then sterile, can wear the Bimec SLV for a lifetime and regulate it himself with just the flip of a switch. Taking any hormones or medication is unnecessary for both men and women. Before you can benefit from the fully developed, internationally patented spermatic duct valve, we need to show the Bimec SLV's capabilities in a medical approval procedure. To do this, we run technical tests with volunteer subjects. Since its invention and in moving forward, we engage in absolutely no animal testing, making the Bimec SLV 100% vegan. It's like an unnecessary comment there. And here is a video. I don't know how long it is, but we'll watch some of it. I'll share my screen with you guys so you can see the video as well. So join my thing so that you can see it.
Dang it, there we go.
All right. How can you tell if a guy
The
flips the
Bimec
switch?
spermatic duct valve, or simply the Bimec SLV, offers a new, reliable form of contraception for men, uncomplicated and lifelong. Men and women everywhere may soon be able to benefit from the patented and fully developed BMEC SLV. For this to happen, we need your support in order to begin the medical approval procedure. The human male's testicles produce millions of sperm cells every day. These cells flow through the spermatic ducts and then combine with seminal fluids, which are then ejaculated during stimulation. The BMEC SLV is attached to the spermatic ducts. In its open state, it initially allows sperm cells to pass through the ducts. It is made of the well-known implant material PEEK Optima. The valve is closed by hand. The switch can be felt through the scrotum skin and then pressed. The flow of sperm cells will then be diverted sideward within the body and can no longer reach the ejaculatory fluids. The possibility of pregnancy is eliminated. To open the valve, one presses a safety pin and then the switch.
Wait a minute, how do you get to the safety pin? His hand's on the inside of his body.
Yeah, it's not a very good illustration.
I know, it's like by the balls.
Sperm cells are then able to flow through the spermatic ducts again, and the wearer is fertile. Sperm cells will already be present during the first ejaculation. Support the BMEC SLV project as a potential customer, as a participant in the clinical trials, or even as an investor. We look forward to having you as part of our team.
All right, so stop it there.
To compare this to Vasogel, they're both actually, or Vasogel, they're both actually really good concepts, and they both do the most important thing is keeping semen from exiting the body. Vasogel shreds it, and you would require an injection, if I remember right, for Vasogel to put it into place, and another injection to break it down and get rid of it. And it takes a little bit of time for that to change. The difference with this is if you wanted to be able to instantly flip to being fertile again, you'd have the ability. There's no wait, and so that's basically the biggest difference is that it has to be surgically implanted, which would be a minor surgery. It would probably be about the equivalent to a vasectomy, except that you could reverse it. You'd have total control over it, and the fact that it does switch on and off, if it works as they expect it to, it would give a guy 100% control over his fertility, and it would give him 100% instant control over his fertility. And even if a woman tried to interfere with it, she would have to take both hands and touch your testicles to do that.
Yeah,
and so
I think you'd know
what she was trying to do.
Yeah. Unless she's like, distracting you with a blowjob or something.
You could just not pay women to have children.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
But certainly, if men didn't have to rely on women for birth control, then, and I don't know, it'd be kind of. Lauren brought up, what if he's asleep? I would say he'd have to be passed out, drunk, or high. If you touch a guy's testicles when he's asleep, he's going to wake up. He's going to wake up. That's not enough to, especially if he doesn't fully trust you. And most women, you can't fully trust them, right? So, but yeah, this is definitely, like, I think both of these things should be on the market. I think both of these things should come to fruition and be widely available to men, because they're both options that men should have the ability to choose, even if there will be plenty of men that are going to pick one over the other. Like, some guys are deathly afraid of needles, and it's not necessarily wimpy. It's a uncanny valley thing. It's not something I experience, but I completely understand it. And then some guys, would be more put off by the fact that they'd have something artificial inside them and surgery to put it in there. But at each one, again, puts you, like, completely takes the situation out of the man or out of the woman's control. And that's the most important thing. She has no way to trick you into pregnancy if you can prevent your semen from even being taken out of your body in any way.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, it seems like kind of a big chunky device. There should be like a remote. How about a remote for that? Does that make that, or maybe an app? You know, like has a Bluetooth on it, and you just put like your app, and you can connect to it. Like I'd like a little bit more ease of use, so you can tell whether it's on or off. But I kind of joke though. Hopefully, at the very least, we'll learn more about this as time goes on. People are talking about women hacking into it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the minute that it becomes vulnerable to somebody else's control, there will be women that'll be sabotaging that birth control.
Yeah, and I wonder how sturdy it is, because you could a woman break it? Could a man break it? Just like fucking, I don't know. So I think that
sperm jacking does not exist. No woman would ever sperm jack, because it's not as though the government pays women to sperm jack. That's not a thing. How very dare you?
Yes.
Yeah, you bet.
It's not as though we should stop paying women to sperm jack.
It's not. No, it's not as though we should take steps like that.
Yeah, every measure that the government has taken to transfer that expense back to men has failed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Although ultimately it still comes from men through their taxes.
Ultimately, it always does. Yep, it's true. That's sort of like the thing that I have concluded, in many cases. So I don't know if there's anything else to add. We should get onto the Cracker Jack story. But keep your eye out on this. Let us know what you guys think. Are you interested? Do you think this? It was made in Germany, so we know it's probably pretty durable, right? I mean, it was made. There's one thing the Germans know how to do.
Jack story. Oh my god! It's like a story that everybody's going to be reading and talking about is a Cracker Jack story. It's a sorry.
Yeah. No, I haven't gotten to the Cracker Jack story yet, but okay, so I did get a Rumble rant from Zeranx for $5. And he says, anything to get us chipped. No, thank you. Maybe if they had cyberpunk braindance tech, I'd consider it. Seriously, with braindance tech, you can potentially learn anything at home. All right, thank you
for that. Or be
programmed. Yeah, or be programmed. Yeah. Unless you get that illegal shit. But I understand those cyberpunk references, and I appreciate that you also make those references. So let us know what you guys think about this BMEC SLV contraception that these German guys came up with in the comments. And yeah, again, there's a link to the website in the show notes over on Patreon. So last but not least, Cracker Jack. So the snack food brand most synonymous with baseball, Cracker Jacks, has launched a spin-off product, Cracker Jill. Cracker Jack, who produces a product that is little more than sugar, corn syrup, and soy. It actually looks like popcorn and peanuts, but yeah, it's garbage now. When I was I'm just gonna say briefly, when I was a kid, I used to love Cracker Jacks when they came in the box, and they were good, but I think the formulation has changed quite a bit. And they don't put them in a box anymore, and the prize is non-existent. So it's like, what's the point? Is changing its mascot for the first time in over 100 years to honor women in sports. Cracker Jack's parent company, Frito-Lay, which I believe Frito-Lay is a woke-ass company, says that the limited edition bags will be available at ballparks nationwide, and that they can also be obtained by donating at least $5 to the Women's Sports Foundation on the new Cracker Jill website. Cracker Jack has donated $200,000 to the foundation already, and if that wasn't enough, Cracker Jack has tapped pop singer Normani to do the rendition of the classic Take Me Out to the Ball Game song changing the lyrics. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that for you guys so you guys can hear the new version. But before we do, I just want to say that I am shocked and appalled at this because I was certain that Cracker Jills were not a female version of Cracker Jack, but was the us coming to the realization, finally coming to the realization that Cracker Jack has found his true gender expression and he is living his truth by becoming Cracker Jill. And that's why we're promoting women in sports, because Cracker Jack, who is now Cracker Jill, is a woman. You can't say she's not, and she has a right to play the sports against the women's in women's sports and beat them all. So yeah, stunning and brave, Cracker Jack. That's what that was my thinking. But this seems like really problematic and regressive in my opinion. I mean, what even is a woman? Anyway, so let's go ahead and take a listen to this ad.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jill. No one can stop you if you have the will. So let's root for a girl's dream. We're adding our face to the game, and we'll run through with never a doubt. It's a new ball.
Play ball.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Finish the write-up, and then I'll talk.
Okay. All right.
I will just ask what we did that was so bad that you made us listen to that as punishment.
No, it's I'm finished with the write-up. It's short, so.
Right. What's normally played on a Hammond is not supposed to be sung in a sexy, sultry voice. It's so cringe.
Yes.
It's like that riff they do at baseball games. Nah, 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 nah. It's like they're going feminism. It's like you're fucking Jessica Rabbit or some shit. It's like trying to sing a novelty pop song in a sexy, sultry voice, like fucking Surfing Bird or something.
It's super cringe. You know, that song, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." You know how I know it, and I don't know if if this was like a global thing or just a Chicago thing, but we had Harry Carey, right? And he was like this very famous announcer for baseball, and he was known for saying "Holy cow," right? And I think it was in the 7th inning. Every game that he would announce for, he would sing that song and everyone would sing it with him. So, and it was a big thing because it was like a participatory event. Like if you went to the baseball game and you went to watch the Cubs play or whatever it was, and Harry Carey was there, then everyone would sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." And literally the least important part of that whole song is the Cracker Jack reference. Like, it's the least important. And these people are basically like, first of all, this is obviously just pandering. And I can't believe that women aren't insulted by this, but I can, because I think that many women like to be pandered to. But it's also just so empty. And the Cracker Jack snack sucks now. Like, nobody eats it. Like, there's so much wrong with this. Like, why don't you make the product better? Why don't you actually make it with popcorn and peanuts instead of soy, which is like, it just looks like popcorn and peanuts and caramel. And none of it is. It's all fake. So, just saying, like, I have a different history, maybe, than most with the song "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" because of Harry Carey. And I feel like this is kind of shitting on him, but...
It works even internationally. Like, that kind of thing only works as a comedically inappropriate rendition. So it's ironic comedy onto an already comedic song. It's the kind of thing I do, but as a joke. Doing it seriously
Yeah, I
Really,
could see like
seriously.
Marilyn Monroe singing this to like, you know, Kennedy or something.
Oh, you
Yeah,
all are not gonna stop until I throw up, are you? Like, come
Yeah, I
on,
know.
guys!
Yo,
Holy shit!
do
This is okay. I gotta go off. I'm gonna burst.
Okay.
This is the same shit that happens with every area of hobbyism or professionalism that women have been involved with in some way or another throughout its history. All right. And this pisses me off every time I see it. You have men and women do things together. Men and women watch baseball. There was women's baseball. There was men's baseball. There was baseball used to be completely segregated with different races playing different fields and everything. And it eventually became unsegregated, and that was special. That was great. That was a unification thing for the entire country, right? And you had women's baseball. Like, if anybody's ever seen A League of Their Own, they know about that. And the people that were involved in that did it to keep America's spirits up, right, during the war. And every time you have a history of female involvement, wives involved with the maintenance, taking care of their husbands who play, fans that are women, sports leagues all over the country, girls softball, girls baseball, and so on. Whether it's this sport or other sports like track and field that I was involved in. I was a hurdler in high school, and I was a cross-country runner in high school, despite my asthma. In fact, to spite my asthma. And it was hard, and I did it because it was hard. And girls involved, and I've worked for managers in retail who were female football players when they were in high school. They didn't go necessarily to school with some of the guys I went to school with that had nicknames like the 4 Tons of Fun, but they were good football players, and they were on championship teams. And I worked for 2 different women who could say that. Women have been involved in sports for decades. Women have been involved in sports in various ways, both amateur and professional, outside of the school system, since at least the early 20th century, if not before. And there have been different sports that women excel at and have very different outcomes in than men. Women are more flexible, so women dominate certain areas of gymnastics, for instance, right? This is not something new and exotic that was discovered last week, that women do sports. Just like it wasn't discovered in the early 2000s, some new exotic thing that women do gaming, right? It's not a new and exotic thing that women do photography or do engineering or do anything, right? Women have done and been doing and been involved and been participants forever. And then when feminists or right-wing feminists that are opposing the left-wing feminists discover an area, they come in and they shit and piss on the women that were there before them, but pretending to be the first women that ever got involved in this and the first people who cared about women's involvement in it. And then all of a sudden it's all about them. Hey, look at us. We're girl gamers. We're girl baseball players. We're singing about girl baseball players. We're girl carpenters. We're girl construction workers. Look at how I hold this sign. Like, my cousin is an engineer. It worked, at least. I don't know if she still does, but I have a cousin that works in the engineering department of ODOT. Right? And she's not holding a sign. She's making them. Right? Nobody told her she couldn't do it because she was a girl. And nobody told her she had to do it because she was a girl. She did it because she wanted to. So it drives me nuts when I see this shit. This is just absolute shit. This is, oh, here, let us help you be whole people. And look, we made women whole people. They were never whole people before we came along. Fuck that. Fuck you. We're whole people. We were whole people without feminism. We were whole people without anybody pandering to us. And it is absolute bullshit. It is the greatest insult of all to women and femininity and ingenuity and capability. When somebody comes in and has to highlight the girls that are doing this thing now, as if girls never did it before and never cared about it before, and nobody cared about the girls doing it in the past. Right? You want to erase women? You do this. This is the biggest erasure of women. It's bigger than the erasure of women that you're claiming is happening when a guy puts on a bathing suit and proves that men are better athletes. Right? It's a bigger erasure of women than when some guy puts on a dress and walks into the women's restroom and you get scared of him. Right? It's a bigger erasure of women than anything else you can do. Yeah. When you deny gender, you're not erasing women as much as when you pretend that the entire history of female involvement in everything didn't happen so you can sing about your stupid snacks.
Your product, your brand.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't do this. I will probably never, ever buy Cracker Jacks again in my entire life. Not because of this. I don't eat those kinds of snacks, right?
Yeah, but you should just avoid Frito-Lay anyways. It's
well, I don't really buy any of that stuff anymore because I can't eat it without putting on, like, I eat one chip and the next thing I know I've put on 20 pounds, I swear. But if something was going to persuade me to buy your brand, it would not be this, right? This is more likely to persuade me to dig in my heels and never buy anything from your brand again. Ever. Like, you can't fix this. This is a cardinal sin. You can't fix this. I will be opposed to Frito-Lay, pretty much forever now. They suck. They're persona non gratis. I'm that insulted by this. And until women start figuring out that you cannot raise women up, you cannot uplift women, make women whole people, make women better, because we're already up there. We're already on top. We are already at the pinnacle, right, of being respected and being recognized and being understood. And even if we weren't, you sure as shit can't do it by shitting on the people who love us the most, which is men. You can't use misandry to float women, right? So stop trying to do it. And you can't use the pretense that women who didn't need a leg up didn't exist. Because we did. We do. We are here. We remember the things we did when we were growing up. And we hate this shit.
Yeah. I would add that a couple things. One is, I don't think that actual, like, athletic girls are interested in this. For one, because they're athletic, so they're not going to want to eat junk food anyway. And for two, I don't think the pandering really works on them, because if they're like sporty or whatever and they're on a volleyball team or a basketball team or whatever it is, they're basically too focused on that to give a shit about, this like brand of junk food that's trying to appeal to them, which is weird because, again, they're probably interested in their own fitness. The other thing is, the people it does attract, I think, are the virtue signaling types of women and men who themselves don't do anything but eat junk food, and they talk about how woke they are. So that's who you're really marketing to. It's not to actual athletic girls. The other thing too is, it's kind of weird, but Cracker Jack, the mascot, which was this boy in a sailor suit with his little dog, he wasn't athletic. He wasn't so, like, this imagery doesn't make sense. It's like girls flexing their biceps in various iterations of the sailor suit. And of course, they're diverse as a white girl, black girl, Asian girl, because that's important.
Yeah, isn't it funny? Only one of the girls on this only one of the Jills on the pictures is a cracker.
Yeah, right. I know. And I was thinking I thought it was weird because I'm pretty sure that the Cracker Jack might have been a reference to the fact that he's white, but yeah, it's just it's so empty. And it's after Women's History Month, they dropped the ball on the timing. Look, this isn't going to sell. I'm just going to put it out there. This is not going to do whatever it is they think it's going to do unless the only thing they're trying to do is make themselves feel good about having done it, which is what they are doing at the end of the day. It's basically masturbatory practice. Athletic chicks probably don't have an interest in this shit. So congratulations, I guess. And then, well, I think that's all I can say about it. It's so obvious at this point, and it's just really cringe, just like Mike said. So we're gonna go ahead, Mike. What were you gonna say?
Well, I did have some things to say, but the both of you said most of the things. This is why I normally talk first, because if I don't,
a good idea.
You guys will say all the things I was thinking of saying. But
yeah.
Like I say, these reappropriation of lyrics is something I do as a trade. For the sake of laughter, doing it seriously to try and tug at people's heartstrings for real is just excruciating. All it does is undo any irreverent enjoyment anyone may have drawn from it or may ever have drawn from it. This is when virtue signaling actively acid washes any sense of kooky humor anyone ever had. It's not just the death of comedy at the hands of self-righteousness. It's the death of any vague, playful sense of fun at the hands of the self-righteousness of feminists. This is the future we're looking at, ladies and germs. And when I say ladies and germs, it's part of the future where ladies are ladies and gentlemen are germs. It's already where we are. Next step, men are not just germs, men are the virus. Oh wait, we're already there as well. Men are the virus that doesn't kill people. Women are the vaccine that does kill people. And it only gets worse as long as we remain stuck in that stupid fucking cartoon reality. I'm once again repeating myself now. Right.
That's okay. We have just been demonetized. No, we weren't monetized to begin with. Who am I kidding? All right, so I got some super chats to read through, but I'm just going to say last thing on this. In my head canon, I've taken this to another level of progressive, which is more woke, and I am more deserving of praise. And I think you guys should shower me for praise for my stunning and brave headcanon approach to this, which is that Cracker Jack and Cracker Jill are not, in fact, two different, distinct characters, but that Cracker Jack just came to the realization that he is, or came out and told us the one thing he's been saving, in his own heart for the last 100 years, which is he is not Cracker Jack, but is, in fact, Cracker Jill. And now he wants to compete in women's sports. And, of course, by God, he should be allowed to. That's all I'm saying. So that is progressive. Where is that representation? Jesus Christ, you people are so far behind. All right, super chats. Richard BR gives us $1.99 and says, I'm surprised that they kept Cracker in the name. Yeah, they should have. Well, I mean, they could give a slightly different name for each color. So leave the white girl Cracker Jill.
Well, you have to remember the narrative, right? It's not as bad to use that term because it doesn't have the history. Right. Therefore, we are protected and will not get taken down for using it, for joking about it.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't have the same hurt.
People. It doesn't have the systemic power behind it. Richard Bier gives us $1.99 and says, don't forget about the LGBT rainbow Oreos. Yeah, again, it's
I would prefer to forget.
Yeah, it's junk food. What else are they going to do? You know that as food shortages increase and as inflation increases, people are going to spend less money on junk. I mean, unless you're fucking, you know, Ethan or from, you know, H3H3, unless you're him or Vosh, but most people are going to be like, the first thing off the list of things is going to be the junk that doesn't have a lot of value, that isn't like immediate. So junk food is out the door. So go ahead, make all the rainbow Oreos you want, make your fucking, you know, trans furry fucking windmill cookies, whatever. Just, you know,
Yeah, they're
fun.
already telling us there's going to be
so
shortages of flour.
yeah.
I doubt there'll be shortages of corn because that grows like all over the United States, but there's going to be shortages of flour. So you won't see as many cakes and cookies and shit like that. But if U.S. farming is any judge of what's going to be happening, or any clue to what's going to be happening, you'll see a shitload of corn chips, and you'll still see your you'll still see your cheesy poofs. You know, you'll still see all that stuff because that's all made out of corn.
Yeah. I wouldn't eat it, but yeah, it is going to be out there.
No.
Gary Thomas gives us $2 and says, wait, Cracker Jack's still in business? Well, I don't know if they were independent at one point, but they're owned by Frito-Lay. So as long as people are eating Doritos, Fritos, Cheetos, and like the Ruffles, then Cracker Jack's is going to be made as well. But it's fucking...
I will just say there are people that still buy those all the time.
It's junk. You can just get like, you know, actual caramel popcorn. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily good for you, but it's a lot better for you than what's actually in Cracker Jack. That's literally like a science project. It's junk. Don't eat it.
Believe it or not, those are still popular. Like we used to sell out of them when I worked at the gas station. Yeah, they're still popular.
They don't taste good
anymore. They don't. I hadn't eaten them in years, and I decided to try a bag, and I regretted it. Soy does bad things to me if I eat too much of it, and we won't have a discussion about that. But I will just say I figured out immediately they were not the same as when I was a kid.
You know what's delicious though? If you want like a popcorny snack, you can get this at a grocery store. It's not hard to find. You get like a nice size bag of caramel corn, and then you get a nice size bag of cheesy popcorn, and then you mix them together in a bowl. And you wouldn't think it unless you've had this before, but what we used to call that the Chicago mix, because there was this really great popcorn shop that would do that. Cheesy popcorn and caramel popcorn are fucking, it's crack.
They are good together.
Be very sparing with it because it's really good. And if it's real popcorn and with real cheese on it, or real caramel, so not the junk, you know, look out for the chemicals and the soy and all that bullshit. It should just be popcorn with cheese and caramel mixed together. Fucking good. So that's my recommendation. Love it. And you could throw in some peanuts too if you just sprinkle it in there, and that'll work as well. Robin Fox gives us $10 in New Zealand money and says, 2 in the stunning, 1 in the brave.
Oh, God.
Thank you. Did you just make an assumption about Cracker Jill's gender? Senior Sticks gives us $2 and says, is there a girl Village People? No. There is nothing like the Village People except the Village People. Nothing. like there's nothing else. Okay? I started to think, is there's like some kind of parallel? No, none exists. If you believe in multiverse theory, there is no other multiverse, no other dimension where the Village People exist except this one. So, you know, feel blessed for that, because we were lucky enough to get the Village People. Because there's nothing else like it. The one Ryu gives us $10 Canadian and says, speaking of older movies, Hannah, do you remember Terms of Endearment? 83. I'm furious how they gaslit the father to give up his children, and his wife cheated on him while accusing him of cheating.
That was attempted on my husband during his divorce from his ex-wife. I will just say that. So there are some movies I cannot sit through. That's kind of one of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for that. Let's check the rumbles. I did get a Rumble rant from Zeranx for $2. And he says, when I was a youngin', we were told to call her Mistress or Lady Jill. I ain't fixing to go in the hot box, no sir. Thank you, Zeranx. And let me just check to see if anyone sent me any super chows. Allison is the only one who has access to look at that, and I don't see anything right now, so there must not be any. If you did send a super chow, Allison will get around to it, and we'll probably just read it out in the next show. So I apologize if you intended on sending us something that was like really relevant to today's show. All right, so that was quite the sausage. We're gonna wrap this up here. So thank you guys so much for coming on today's show. Thank you to Ranimer, Cam, and Hannah for joining us. We're going to go into the after show now to look at this article. Let's start charging men to have babies. We'll see what she's going to say. Yeah, we'll get into it from there. So if you guys like this video, please smash that like button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Over on Rumble too as well, if you could. Hit the bell for notifications so you know when our streams go live. Leave us a comment on Rumble and or YouTube. Be a part of the conversation on both platforms, because we do have some new people on Rumble that watch that, you know, aren't familiar with our content. Maybe it's because they only use Rumble. And so like they might need like, you know, to be red pilled in the comment sections. So maybe you can help them with that. And most importantly, speaking of red pilling other people, please share this video, because sharing is caring. So thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.